What's going on there, YouTube, and welcome back to another comic book video. Okay, so we are going to continue our coverage over X-Men comics as we work our way up to X-Men Days of Future Present, the next crossover that we are going to talk about soon on the channel. But before we are able to dive into that crossover, we have to sit down and cover some stories that came before it. Now, we got a lot going on when it comes to X-Men comics around this time in Marvel Comics. Excalibur has the Cross-Time Caper storyline. X-Factor, they got Judgment War. X-Men, they are losing team members left and right. But when it comes to New Mutants, well, they're going to travel back over to Asgard. And the reason why? Because of Hela. Hela has some interesting plans for one particular member of the New Mutants, and that would be Dani Moonstar. Now, something I do want to mention before we dive deep into the story arc is that the first page tells us that when it comes to Hela, the reason why she's going after Dani Moonstar is because of Thor. So apparently Thor went out of his way to destroy a special kind of artifact that kind of let Hela lose control of Hell a tad bit. She's still in control, but not as much as she used to be. And so this is her trying to regain her control, but to also get a revenge against Thor and all the Asgardians. And of course, she chosen Dani Moonstar, who is technically a Valkyrie. And I'll explain more about that here in a moment. And so getting into today's storyline, we do pick up with our heroes heading over to the home of the parents of Colossus and Magik. And the reason why? To give Magik back over to her parents. Because back in X-Men Inferno, when it came to Magik, she was de-aged back to her original age before she had disappeared in Limbo the first time. And so now she needs somebody to properly take care of her. Now we're going to shift our focus over to Dani Moonstar. Now, something else I do want to mention about Dani Moonstar is that she has the ability of depth vision. Now, when it comes to depth vision, that means that she is now able to see when death is nearby for somebody. She does not know who, but she does know that somebody is most likely going to die. Now, the reason why she has this ability because she was chosen to be a Valkyrie by Brightwing, her Pegasus. Now, here's the thing. She is the first human to become a Valkyrie, and that is really huge in the world of Marvel Comics, but especially for her. Now, lately, she's been having a severe headache, and with that severe headache, she began to see more death visions around her, kind of wondering who is going to die, her or possibly one of her friends. But also, that headache has been giving her a fever as well. But right after you have our heroes hand over Magik to her parents, well, you did have Dani Moonstar and her Pegasus Brightwing just collapse on the ground, and it freaks out the rest of the team. And now they have to take her and the Pegasus back to the base of X-Factor. Now, something I do want to mention is that around this time in Marvel Comics, the New Mutants did gain a few new team members to their team. You see, back in X-Men Inferno, we had two teenage superhero teams when it came to the X-Men. You had the New Mutants, but you also had X-Terminators, who were the trainees to X-Factor. Now, after the ending of X-Men Inferno, the characters on X-Terminators were just rolled into the team of New Mutants. Now, the only ones who had properly joined are the teenage or the young adult ones. The kids like Artie and also Leech were not really allowed to join the team because they're just kids. They're almost babies. And so they were shipped away to a boarding school. Either way, we do have some new characters on the team. Now, you do have our heroes go back to the base of X-Factor, which is a ship that used to belong to Apocalypse, but X-Factor was able to free it from his control. Now, the ship, or the aircraft, is being controlled by an AI system. Now, thanks to the AI system, it was able to scan Dani Moonstar, and tell our heroes, hey, listen, what's happening to her right now is not your usual kind of medical issue. This is a magical issue. You need somebody who knows magic very well who can possibly help you with this situation. And so you had to recommend to go find Doctor Strange. And so you do have our young heroes head over to the home of Doctor Strange. Now, there is one character I do want to focus on as we cover this entire story arc, and that is going to be Boom Boom. Over time, we're going to see the mental state of Boom Boom begin to technically fall apart. And you see what I mean here in a moment, because as soon as our heroes arrive at the home of Doctor Strange, you did have our heroes knock on the door and they are confronted by Wong. Of course, he is the assistant to Doctor Strange. And they tell Wong, hey, we are looking for the doctor. We need his magical help right now because our friend is going through something and we have no idea what to do. Now, around this time in Marvel Comics, Doctor Strange was quote unquote dead. Not really, but he was pretending to be dead. And so when it comes to our heroes, they are informed that Doctor Strange is no longer around, that he is dead. Now, when it comes to Boom Boom, she does not believe Wong at all, and she throws a small bomb into the home of Doctor Strange. Now, luckily, the bomb was stopped by Strange, but the problem is, though, she's very hot-tempered, and that is going to continue for the rest of this story arc. But then, out of nowhere, something big happens to Dani Moonstar. Because out of nowhere, we do see Dani Moonstar be surrounded by flames, and the same thing for Brightwing. Now, it does seem that she is currently being controlled by some kind of evil spirit, and we get that confirmation from Doctor Strange. Now, let's not forget, the guy is pretending to be dead, but he realized he must go ahead and help out the New Mutants with this problem. And so what he does is that he goes into his astral form as a way to help the team out, but to also continue to pretend to be dead. They can't see him, but at least he is able to work behind the scenes as a way to save Dani. Now, we do get our confirmation that she is being controlled by some kind of evil spirit, because when he looks at her soul, he sees three different versions of her. He sees her original version, he sees her Valkyrie version, but then there's a third version of her, or possibly a third being inside her body who is trying to fight for control, this evil spirit. Now, when it comes to Doctor Strange, he believes if he is able to pull out her astral form, then maybe her body will stop trying to attack anybody in its way. The evil spirit can no longer use her body. And so that leads into the rest of the team trying their best to actually fight against Dani Moonstar's body that's being controlled by the spirit. And honestly, it's just too hard for them. It kind of showed this evil spirit is able to take almost any hit the rest of the team is trying to throw at it, but at the same time, it also is able to do a lot of damage to the rest of the New Mutants. Now, when it comes to the innocent people, they're seeing this, and this is going to be very important for the next chapter, because it's going to bring in another team that is going to try to take down the New Mutants. But we'll save that for later. But our heroes, yeah, they're struggling. And Doctor Strange realized that his plan did not work. The evil spirit is able to continue on to use the body of Dani Moonstar to attack the city. And so you have Doctor Strange wake up the astral form of Dani Moonstar to inform her what he was trying to do, which was, hey, listen, I thought I had a good idea here. I thought I would be able to take out your astral form to stop your body from being able to attack the rest of your team, but also innocent people. But now I realize that you were fighting for control for your body against that evil spirit. And now with me taking you out of your body, I allowed the evil spirit to win. I must put you back into your body so that you are able to continue to fight it. But the problem is, she knows even if he does that, she's going to lose again. They need to find another way to actually stop this spirit. But the problem is right now, what can they do? Now, she does actually have a way to kind of give our heroes more time to find another way. You see, when it comes to Dani Moonstar, recently, she got an upgrade to her powers. Let me explain. So at first, she had the ability to tap into people's minds to learn about their worst fears. And once she had learned about their worst fears, she was able to create a construct, a mirage in front of you to make it seem like your worst fear had came to life. Now, those mirages could not actually do damage to you. They were just a mirage. But after New Mutants Annual number 4, everything changed. She got an upgrade. Now she's able to create actual constructs of different things that can do all kinds of things for her, like help her fight in battle against other people. And so in this story arc, we see her use her ability as a way to create a machine that has the ability to freeze people. And so with that machine, she freezes herself to keep herself frozen just long enough, hoping that the rest of the team, including Strange, can most likely find a way to save her, but to also get rid of this evil spirit. Now, Hela, she saw what Dani did, and she is very upset, but she knows that sooner or later, when it comes to that evil spirit, it is going to take completely over the body of Dani Moonstar, break out of that ice, and then Hela will be able to have full control over Dani Moonstar. Now, when it comes to our heroes, they don't really have anybody to help them here. I mean, yes, they do have Doctor Strange, and he is working behind the scenes right now in his astral form. But currently, he is trying his best to figure out what exactly is going on here with Dani Moonstar. Now, when it comes to X Factor, well, our young heroes can't go to them for help, because around this time in Marvel Comics, well, the X Factor team was in Great Britain, and they're trying to save a young mutant better known as Alchemy. And so currently, they're away on that mission. And so for our young heroes, all they can do right now is just head back home and wait for X Factor to come back to hopefully find a way to actually help out Dani Moonstar. Now, here's the problem they have right now. You see, when it came to Dani, even though she had a great idea of creating that machine to freeze her, that machine is very heavy. And so is she right now, being a huge block of ice. And so our heroes are kind of struggling moving her across the city, hoping to get back to the ship. Now, I want to shift our focus over to Hela for a very good reason, because Hela does inform us that when it comes to Asgard, it's currently in the negative zone. Now, that's really important, and the reason why, because when it comes to the negative zone, there's now no longer a proper way to travel to Asgard. But on top of that, the effects of the negative zone is messing with Odin's sight. You see, Odin is usually able to see everything that's happening in Asgard, but thanks to the negative zone effect, he's not really able to see everything. And that gives Hela the ability to move somewhat freely around to pull off her master plan, because now Odin has no idea what is exactly happening to the Valkyries. Now, when it comes to Dani Moonstar, like I said earlier, she is a Valkyrie, but the only reason why, because Brightwind, her Pegasus, had chose her to become a Valkyrie. But yes, she's also part of Hela's plan. But now we have to pick up with another group of characters, and that would be Freedom Force, better known as Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. Now, the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants was led by Mystique, but recently all the different characters of that group began to work for the government as a way to hunt down other mutants that had supposedly committed crimes. Now, around this point in Marvel Comics, there was a law. If you are a mutant, you are supposed to register, but you have a lot of mutants out there who are not trying to do that. Now, when it comes to Freedom Force, the last time we saw them, they were trying to go after Fire Fist. Because remember, Fire Fist was the first trainee of X Factor. He was somebody who burned a young woman when his powers had first activated. And so because that was a crime, he was supposed to be arrested, but he was forgiven for that crime. But here we are now in the present day, and the reason why they're here right now is to go after him again, but for a different reason. Because when it came to Dani Moonstar being this fiery chick around New York just causing damage all over the place, all the different kinds of reports said, hey, there are flames everywhere. Someone on fire is just burning down buildings and hitting people left and right. And so you have Freedom Force believe, oh, it has to be Fire Fist. He's the only person we know as a mutant besides Pyro here who has the ability of fire in some kind of capacity. And so it has to be him who's currently trying to burn down New York. And so you have Freedom Force once again going out of their way to try to arrest Fire Fist. Now, as soon as they arrive, you have our young heroes trying their best to inform Freedom Force, hey, listen, you got everything wrong. It's a huge mistake. Rusty here, Fire Fist, is actually innocent. The person at fault is Dani, but actually she's not at fault. She's being controlled by some kind of demon. Now, when it comes to Freedom Force, they're not trying to listen at all. Now, I kind of like this a lot. And here's the reason why, because it really shows that our young heroes are becoming mature. They're trying their best to not fight here. They want to talk things out and move on with their lives because their main focus right now is to help their friend Dani before that evil spirit is able to break free and do more damage across the entire city. But it really shows that when it comes to Freedom Force, they're not trying to listen at all. Now, when it comes to Blob and a few other members of Freedom Force, they say a few things that is going to lead into some very important storylines down the road. Now, we got to jump back to X-Men Inferno, really right after X-Men Inferno. But thanks to that event, we saw a bunch of babies be kidnapped. Now, X Factor was able to save those babies and gave those babies over to Freedom Force to give those babies back over to their parents. But you have Blob informed that the government is most likely going to use the babies and other children in some kind of project to make the mutants work for the government in some kind of way. And that's a huge problem. And so now our young heroes, they now know they have to tell X Factor the idea that young mutants are about to be forced to work for the government. Now, when it comes to our young heroes, they're trying their best to get on their ship. The ship had arrived just in time to save them, or you would think it would save them. Here comes the next problem. The ship begins to be taken away into space, and that leads into Judgment War that we're going to cover over in X Factor. But now our young heroes don't have a way to protect themselves, but to also, they don't have a way to get away from Freedom Force. Now, when it comes to Doctor Strange, let's not forget, he was there the entire time in his astral form, but he does confirm with himself that there is an evil spirit inside of Dani Moonstar, but this evil spirit came from Hela, and so the Strange, she has to go back to Asgard. He has to send Dani over to Asgard because one, to protect the Earth, but two, he feels like it's the only way to save Dani. And so he begins to teleport her over to Asgard, including the New Mutants as well. Now, two of the New Mutants, they get left behind. That will be Rusty Collins, Fire Fist, and Skid. They were cut off from the rest of the group in the middle of the battle, and so they are going to stay on Earth, while the rest of the team, including Dani, are going over to Asgard. Now, as we dive into the final chapter for today's video, we do see our heroes in Asgard, but I kind of want to focus on Wolfbane. Now, when it comes to Wolfbane, she has the ability to, well, turn into a wolf. That's really it. Either way, when it comes to Wolfbane, she does have a connection, a psychic connection with Dani Moonstar. Now, this is her saying, if I'm able to turn to my wolf form to re-establish that connection, then maybe I'll be able to figure out what exactly is going on in her body, but to also kind of help her to fight against this demonic spirit. But the problem is though, as soon as she connects to Dani Moonstar, she feels a negative feedback because you had a spirit who is now in full control of Dani's body just attack her through Wolfbane's mind, but also throwing fire at her as well too. Now the fire is not really burning Wolfbane, but it does damage her in kind of magical way. And either way though, it really showed Wolfbane that right now, Dani has fully lost control of her own body. She lost the battle against the evil spirit. And the question is right now, what can our heroes do to help Dani? Now, with Dani, she has transformed into this more red looking spirit creature who's now just flying off into Asgard, most likely heading over to Hela or possibly somewhere else in Asgard for the time being. But now I want to jump over to Hela, because you have Hela being very confused about how in the world the New Mutants were able to arrive on Asgard. Because like I said earlier, Asgard is in the negative zone. There's no proper way to travel to Asgard at the moment. Now we know how they got there, but she does not know how they got there. Now when it comes to Hela, we also learned that she wanted Dani on Earth to kill off people as a way to build up her army of dead souls. But the problem is now Dani is no longer on Midgard, on Earth. She's now on Asgard. And that kind of limit her chances to build up a proper army. But she's still okay with the idea of Dani killing off the New Mutants to kind of give her army some people with actual abilities. Now, I want to jump back over to our heroes, and here's the reason why. So currently our heroes are wondering what to do next here, because honestly, they're stuck in Asgard. But something I do want to mention is that most of our heroes on the New Mutants have been to Asgard before, but there are new members to the team who are now figuring out that they're on Asgard. They had traveled across dimensions, and that's really huge. So for example, Boom Boom and Richter, they were part of Exterminators, but recently joined the New Mutants. So for them, this is all new, the idea of traveling across dimensions. Now, for Richter, he's kind of adjusting very well, but Boom Boom, she's not, and her mental state is only going to get worse. Now, when it comes to our heroes, they do have a run-in with the Doors. Now, the Doors, they're about to assault the castle that belongs to the Valkyries. Now, when it comes to the Valkyries in Asgard, they're usually there to help lost souls go to the right place in the afterlife. But recently, the Valkyries have been going around killing people for unknown reasons. Now, we know why, because of Hela, but they don't know why. And so you have the Doors about to attack the castle of the Valkyries, but then ran into the New Mutants. Now, when it comes to our heroes, they're trying their best to defend themselves because the Doors believe that our heroes are actually spies for the Valkyries. But you have our heroes say, no, we are not. We're very confused about what's happening here at the moment. But then one of the Doors to the name that's very familiar to Cannonball, and that would be Eitri. Eitri is the king of the Doors who had become friends with Cannonball. I won't really say friends, I really say more of Eitri had adopted Cannonball like a son to him. And so as soon as Cannonball hears the name Eitri, he said, hey, wait, I know your boss. I know your king. I'm like a son to him. Please tell him I am here. And listen, he'll talk to me and we can work everything out. Now, when it comes to the Doors, they don't believe that Sam actually knows their king. And so for a time being, you have our heroes being thrown into a prison cell until the actual king come down and talk to Sam. But while you have our heroes inside their prison cell, I want to shift our focus over to Boom Boom because like I said earlier, this is where we see Boom Boom's mental state begin to fall apart, because for her, this is all new. You see, when it comes to the X-Men, X-Factor, and New Mutants, they have been heroes for a while now. They have traveled across space, other dimensions. Like, all of this is just another Tuesday for them. But for Boom Boom, she had a lot happen to her in a very short period of time, because she only joined X-Factor in a short period of time. But after joining X-Factor as a trainee, well, then you had Inferno. They traveled to Limbo. She watched a young girl de-age back into a younger girl, and now here they are in Asgard. In a very short period of time, all of that happened. And of course, it's too much for her to handle. She needs time to actually, take all that in and work through it properly. But unfortunately, she never had the time to actually relax, to take those things in, because as soon as one story ends, bam, something else happens. And then once that ends, bam, something else happens. It's just too much for her to handle. And you have Richter trying his best to be that friend for her. But again, she's kind of like, no, leave me alone. I need to work through this on my own. But then you have Eitri walk in. Now, once Eitri walks in, he does confirm that one, Sam and him know each other, so our heroes are able to leave their cell. But then you have Eitri tell us that yes, when it comes to the Valkyries, they have changed. They're no longer there to help lost souls. Now they are there to kill off people, but also they have been stealing weapons and taking those weapons over to their castle. And so when it came to the doors, they said, we are going to assault the castle and get our weapons back, because hey, that's our stuff, not theirs. But also we need those weapons to protect people who are being killed off by the Valkyries. Now, with all that being said though, you also have Eitri say Odin is not able to help us right now. For some reason, he is unable to see what's happening to his land. And now guys, we already know that, because the negative zone is having negative effects on Odin's sight across Asgard. But to close on today's video, while you have our hero trying to think of a new game plan on what to do next, you then have 3 Valkyries arrive in the hidden base of the doors. And now they are going to attack our heroes in the doors, because they're now working for Hela. But this is where we are going to end today's comic book video. So please leave me a like down below and subscribe. But guys, see y'all next time. Later.